Okay guys, here we are, continuing with the theme of the drums, getting deeper into what is a fundamental aspect. After having seen the roles of the different elements that compose the family of the drums, we go in deeper to understanding how to better care the part that is the foundation of the drums, as we saw in the last lesson. Let's look at the kick. So let's go and look at what are the right and fundamental rules to construct a kick which is efficient and effective. So guys, let's think for a second. Which do you think are the rules to make a kick, which, like I said before, is efficient and effective? In other words, right. Think about it for a second. Thinking about the kick, let's think about its role, about it being a foundation. You may arrive and understand how to make a right kick. Let's look at them. So, let's make a summary with these three golden rules, the fundamental aspects for making a kick which is correct, which is aligned with your song. A kick, firstly, must be right in its tone, in tune. Obviously, when we go see musical theory later, we will understand perfectly the best ways to have a kick which is perfectly in tune, even if today we'll see a bit about this. But then, as the course enriches our understanding, we'll understand effectively the characteristics and the best way to make it suitable for our track. So second, right for our track. And what does that mean? It means adequate in style and to the genre of our track. Obviously, for example, a kick which is very long will not go well in a genre like pop. A very long kick will be better for a genre like probably future bass and other genres that require that type of kick. And lastly, that it speaks with the bass. And why does it speak with the bass? Because of frequency characteristics. The frequency spectrums fall in the same places more or less. And so to have dissonances, to have problematic issues between kick and bass, give us, already in the production phase, a complicated track to deal with, going into the final phases of mixing and mastering. So it's better to start from the beginning doing the right things. Now, let's go and look at the characteristics that we want to act upon so we can understand how to intervene on our kick and adapt it best to the three golden rules we have just seen. The characteristics on which you intervene are these. We already said the kick must be in tune. And so, what does this mean? It means that one of the features where we can act is on the pitch of the kick. Second characteristic is the top kick. The top kick is that part further from the basic frequencies on a first listening. Obviously, if we're careful, we can understand it. Today, we'll understand this part as the basic frequencies of the kick. The basic frequencies of the kick are the low spectrum, of course, which has, though, one characteristic of the top kick on which we can act, which are frequencies from 1000 to 1500, which give more presence on the attacks and give more possibilities for other frequencies to come out and have the kick feel more present. And after this, the ADSR. What is the ADSR? It is attack, decay, sustain, and release. And we have to begin to learn these terms because this is international nomenclature and it's useful always. And so, what is the attack? The attack is the time it takes for the kick to arrive to the maximum point of volume. As you can see in this chart, the attack is represented by the line that shows how much time it took for the volume to arrive to the maximum point. Obviously, an immediate attack will reach the apex immediately. A slow attack, in turn, will be longer with a different sound like taking more time to reach the maximum volume. So, the faster the attack is, the shorter the time it takes for the kick to arrive to maximum volume. Decay is the amount it takes. Listen that these two variables are about time, are the time it takes for our sound element, in this case it's the kick, to reach the volume sustain, as in this chart, you see? Once having reached the attack, the time it takes to arrive to sustain. Sustain then will be the medium volume that our sound element is going to reach as a standard level, I'd say, as a support. Imagine if I press a key. Impulse takes off, decay volume, and then as long as I keep the key pressed, I'll have that volume fixed. Okay, then when I let go, the fourth element comes in, release. Release is the time it takes for the volume to go back to zero. After I have let go the sound impulse, the key or the impulse on the piano roll. Okay, now let's look at them in deep, all these elements, and understand how we can manage them in a synth. So, to understand all these variables we have just spoken about, let's go look at them through a sample we loaded to give you the first basic ideas on tonality and how to handle the pitch side. So, this sample we loaded is a sample loaded in E. E is also me. And we will understand better all this part when we see musical theory, in a lesson ahead where we speak about tones and tonality. This is a bass loaded in E, so we will go and work to try and achieve a more functional kick, thinking about the environment of the track, by making this kick that sounds in E. So, what do we do? Let's start with where we start, which allows us to use and manage all the variables like the ones we have talked about, which is a synth that allows us to make a kick, like in this case. This is the Nicky Romero of the Sonic Academy. We use this one, but obviously there are many more. In this case, we will use this one to manage all the different functions we want to explain. Obviously, it can also be used with samples, as we'll see later, but in this case we'll go to the synthesis. So we said we have our bass loaded in E, so we will go and manage the pitch, our first variable. So we'll go and construct a kick that, as said, plays in E. This is our bass. Okay, so we begin to insert our kick. You see here, we can change these parameters. We effectively change tonality. Okay, so we know it's E, so we begin to set it on E. Okay, E, E, we also have this E, and we close it with this E. Obviously, and we'll see it later, other tones go well. Other notes will give us optimal results. But we will see this later on. So, we've set our pitch. So now let's remember our ADSR. This will be the attack phase. This is the decay, then the sustain, and then release. But now let's go see it in another parameter, in that of the amp, which manages the ADSR in the best way. In the amp then we will manage, as we saw before in this case, the attack. So if I want an immediate attack, I'll give my kick an immediate attack. If I want a slower attack, you can hear how it lost attack and how it regains it. So we can manage the attack, the decay. You see, it's more or less the same shape we saw before.